Maxie Jones is waking up and Port Charles might not be ready for what comes next because nothing about this Nathan West situation feels right. So Maxie Jones is coming back, and honestly the whole thing feels like one of those moments where you know something massive is about to explode, but you can't quite figure out where the fuse is lit. You know what I mean. Because here's this woman who's been in a coma, and the last thing she remembers is her world without Nathan West, and now suddenly everyone is going to be standing around her hospital bed telling her that her husband, who died 7 years ago, is somehow miraculously alive and well and ready to pick up where they left off like nothing ever happened. Except that's not how life works, is it? That's not how grief works. And it's definitely not how soap operas work when they dangle this kind of resurrection storyline in front of us. Because there's always a catch, there's always something lurking beneath the surface waiting to pull the rug out from under everyone involved. Nina Reeves bought into it. Liesl Obrecht bought into it too, and even Lulu Spencer, who should probably know better considering everything she's been through with her own coma situation, has apparently accepted this man as Nathan without much question, which feels strange, doesn't it? Feels like everyone is so desperate to have Nathan back that they're willing to overlook whatever red flags might be waving right in front of their faces. But Maxie is different because Maxie has always had this sixth sense about people, this ability to read a room or read a person in ways that other characters can't. And the spoilers are hinting that something isn't going to sit right with her from the very beginning. She might not be able to articulate it right away, might not have the words to explain why her heart feels conflicted when this man is sitting at her bedside, claiming to be the love of her life, but that gut feeling is going to be there, gnawing at her, making her question everything. Is he really Nathan West? That's the question, isn't it? And it's the question that's going to drive this entire storyline forward, because if he is Nathan, then Maxie has to deal with the impossible situation of having moved on with Damien Spinelli, having built a life and a relationship with Spinelli, who has been there for her through everything, who has been raising their daughter Georgie and being a father figure to James West, Nathan's son, and suddenly she's supposed to what? Just throw all of that away because her supposedly dead husband showed up. But if he's not Nathan, if he's an imposter, then everything changes and the fan base seems to be leaning into that possibility with both hands. Because let's be real here, nobody wants to see Maxie choose Nathan over Spinelli at this point. Spinelli has put in the work. He's been the consistent presence in her life. He's been there when Nathan couldn't be there because Nathan was dead, or so we all thought. And now to have that threatened by this resurrection feels wrong to a lot of viewers who have invested in the Maxie and Spinelli relationship over these past years. The imposter theory gives everyone what they want, in a weird, twisted way that only soap operas can pull off. Fans who love Nathan get to see him back on screen, get to see that face and those mannerisms, even if it's not really him. Underneath, Maxie gets to stay with Spinelli without looking like she's choosing him over her dead husband, because if Nathan is fake, then there's no real choice to make is there. She's just protecting herself from a con artist or a villain or whoever this person really is. It's a clean-out, an easy narrative escape hatch that lets the writers have their cake and eat it too, which is probably why it feels so plausible. As a theory, because this show has never been shy about using doppelgangers and masks and plastic surgery and all manner of identity shenanigans to service a story. And then there's Lulu, and oh boy is that going to be a mess. Because apparently while Maxie was lying in a coma fighting for her life, Lulu decided it was a good time to make a move on the man she thinks is Nathan, her best friend's husband. The man her best friend mourned for 7 years and built a shrine to in her heart. Under normal circumstances, this would be friendship-ending behavior, right? This would be the kind of betrayal that you can't come back from easily, but what if Maxie wakes up and immediately gets a bad feeling about this? Nathan character. What if instead of being furious at Lulu for crossing that line, Maxie is actually concerned for her, worried that Lulu is being taken in by an imposter and potentially putting herself in danger by getting romantically involved with whoever this person really is? That could flip the entire dynamic on its head, couldn't it? Because instead of Maxie being the wronged party furious at her best friend for moving in on her husband, she becomes the protector, warning Lulu that something isn't right, that whoever this man is, he's not Nathan West, and she needs to be careful. Will Lulu listen, though? That's the real question, because Lulu has been through her own trauma with the coma and waking up to find that the world moved on without her. And finding out that Dante had moved on with someone else, and maybe she's just desperate to find some kind of connection with someone who understands her. Someone who shares that experience of coming back from the brink and trying to figure out how to fit back into a world that kept spinning while you were frozen in time. But what if Maxie's warnings fall on deaf ears? What if everyone around her writes off her concerns as neuroses stemming from her medical condition, from the trauma of the coma, from the shock of waking up to find her dead husband alive? Because that's what people do, isn't it? They dismiss women's intuition, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it disrupts the narrative everyone else has already bought into. The doctors might say she's experiencing some kind of post-coma confusion, that her brain is still adjusting, that she needs time to process everything. And in the meantime, this imposter Nathan gets to embed himself deeper into the lives of everyone in Port Charles, gets more access to Maxie's son James, gets closer to the inner circle of people he might be trying to deceive, or destroy, or manipulate for whatever endgame he's working towards. And speaking of endgames, let's talk about Peter August for a second, because wouldn't it be absolutely diabolical if it turns out that Nathan is actually Peter somehow in disguise? I mean, think about it. Peter has been dead, but bodies have a way of not staying dead in Port Charles, don't they? And Peter had resources he had. Connections to people like Caesar Faison and the DVX and all these shadowy organizations that have access to technology most people can't even imagine. What if Faison's cold fusion project that everyone keeps whispering about wasn't just about energy or weapons, but about transformation, about the ability to literally become someone else, not just with a mask or plastic surgery, but with some kind of technology that changes you on a cellular level or projects a perfect hologram that can fool everyone, including DNA tests? Or maybe it's not Faison's tech at all. Maybe it's something the WSB has been developing in secret, or something that Jen Sidwell and his criminal network has gotten their hands on through whatever black market channels these people use to acquire the impossible. The WSB has always had their fingers in weird experimental programs, hasn't it? And they've never been shy about using people as guinea pigs for their projects without much concern for the ethical implications. What if Nathan's return is part of a larger operation, maybe something aimed at Anna Devane, who has enemies coming out of the woodwork at any given moment? People who would love nothing more than to see her suffer, to see her world fall apart. And what better way to do that than to resurrect the son she thought was lost, to mess with the people she cares about, to create chaos in Port Charles while keeping Anna running in circles trying to figure out what's really going on. Maxie's world being turned upside down could just be collateral damage in that scenario, right? She's not the target, she's just in the blast radius of whatever scheme is unfolding, but that doesn't make it any less devastating for her or for James, who would be caught in the middle of this. A little boy who never got to know his father, now being told that his father is back, but what if that father is actually his father's killer, masquerading in his father's body? Peter killed Nathan, or at least was responsible for his death, and if Peter is somehow now pretending to be Nathan, that's a level of twisted psychological warfare that even Faison would have been impressed by. It's the kind of long-game manipulation that requires patience and planning and a complete disregard for human life and emotion. If Nathan is really Peter, it would absolutely make sense that Maxie's internal alarm system is going haywire because Peter was her half-brother, right? They had that complicated relationship where she tried to see the good in him, even when everyone else was warning her that he was dangerous, and on some level, even though she didn't know Nathan was being played by Peter in disguise, her body, her instincts might recognize something about his energy or his mannerisms or the way he looks at her that just feels fundamentally wrong. It's like when you walk into a room and you can't explain why, but you just know something is off. You can feel it in your bones, that presence that sends a little shiver down your spine, even when everything looks normal on the surface. The real tragedy here would be Maxie trying to communicate this to people and having no one believe her because she doesn't have proof, right? She just has a feeling, and feelings aren't evidence in the eyes of everyone else, especially when those feelings contradict what everyone wants to believe. They want Nathan back so badly that they're willing to overlook inconsistencies, willing to explain away anything that doesn't quite fit willing, to gaslight Maxie into thinking she's the one who's confused when really she's the only one seeing clearly. And James. Poor James is going to be caught in this too, because Maxie's going to want to protect her son from this man who might not be his father at all. But how does she do that without looking like an unstable mother who's preventing her child from bonding with his allegedly returned father? If she tries to limit Nathan's interaction with James, people are going to judge her, going to question her mental state, going to maybe even threaten her custody rights because she's denying a father the chance to reconnect with his son. And that's the kind of situation that could push someone to the breaking point. Maxie would have to watch helplessly as this potential imposter plays house with her child, tells him bedtime stories, gives him the father-son relationship James has been missing, while all the while she knows deep down that something is fundamentally wrong with this picture, but she can't prove it, and maybe nobody will believe her until it's too late, until whatever plan this person is executing reaches its climax and people get hurt and lives get destroyed. The psychological toll of that would be immense, wouldn't it? Being the only person who can see the truth, but being dismissed at every turn, having to smile and play along, while internally screaming that this isn't right, this isn't real, this isn't Nathan. It's the kind of storyline that could really showcase Maxie's strength as a character, because she's going to have to trust her instincts, even when everyone else is telling her she's wrong, even when the easier path would be to just accept what she's being told and fold back into the narrative everyone else has created. But Maxie has never been someone who takes the easy path, has she? She's always been willing to fight for what she believes in, even when it makes her unpopular, even when it costs her relationships, even when it puts her at odds with the people she loves most. And Lulu is going to be caught in the crossfire of this, because on one hand she has her best friend warning her that this man isn't who he claims to be, and on the other hand she has this connection to someone she thinks is Nathan, someone who understands what it's like to come back from a coma, to try to reintegrate into a life that moved on without you. If Maxie is right and Nathan is an imposter, Lulu's going to feel absolutely gutted, isn't she? She's going to feel manipulated and used and stupid for not seeing what Maxie apparently saw from the beginning. But if Maxie is wrong, if this really is Nathan and Maxie is just struggling to accept his return, then Lulu might feel justified in pursuing a relationship with him, might feel like Maxie had her chance with Nathan and chose to move on with Spinelli, and now it's Lulu's turn to find happiness. Either way, the friendship between Maxie and Lulu is going to be tested in ways it hasn't been before, and that's probably the most compelling part of this entire storyline, because these two women have been through so much together, have supported each other through impossible situations, have been there for each other when nobody else was, and to see that potentially fracture over a man regardless of whether that man is really Nathan, an imposter is going to be heartbreaking to watch. Because at the end of the day, this is what soap operas do best, right? They take relationships we care about, and they put them through the ringer. They test them and strain them, and sometimes break them beyond repair all, in service of drama and conflict, and keeping viewers tuned in week after week, wondering what's going to happen next.